Bee Vitality is a supplement made from freeze-dried bee bread extract. It's advertised to support breast growth, enhance fertility, boost cognitive performance, alleviate PMS symptoms, and strengthen immunity. But what the heck is bee bread? And what actual proven benefits does it have in humans? Bee bread is a natural concoction made by bees when they blend pollen with bee saliva and honey within the honeycomb cells of their hive. Through fermentation with lactic acid, it transforms into a functional food for bee larvae, rich in various nutrients like amino acids, fatty acids, organic acids, polyphenols, vitamins, and minerals. While studies on these bee bread extracts have shown promising beneficial effects in laboratory settings, it's essential to recognize that these findings are mostly confined to research on isolated cells in controlled environments. And while bee bread may be beneficial for bee larvae, we can't assume it'll be beneficial for humans. We require human clinical trials to validate any potential benefits in humans and ensure safety in real-world scenarios. So does bee bread have any good research into the benefits in humans with regards to any of these claims? No, not really. Although it may be because bee bread is a relatively newly recognized food. There is another closely related bee product, bee pollen, that has been used for longer with a bit more human research behind it, offering insights into potential health benefits that could extend to bee bread. Bee pollen is a natural substance collected by honeybees from flowering plants, representing the male seed of flowers gathered as bees forage for nectar. Like bee bread, the composition of bee pollen also contains a range of beneficial compounds such as proteins, amino acids, lipids, carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals, and polyphenols. Interestingly, the majority of beneficial compounds found in bee bread stem from bee pollen itself, with bee bread essentially just being fermented bee pollen from a functional food perspective. Both are considered pretty comparable when it comes to the array of beneficial nutrients. However, there are minor differences. For instance, bee bread may boast slightly higher levels of certain fatty acids, whereas bee pollen might contain more protein. Advocates of bee bread argue that the fermentation process enhances the benefits of bee pollen, making it much more nutritious. One big reason for this is the fact that bee pollen is encased in a tough outer shell called exine, which might theoretically prevent the effective absorption of its nutrients. While chemical and physical treatments to break down this outer layer proved either too costly or destroyed too many beneficial nutrients, fermentation emerged as a method to retain the nutrients while removing the protective shell. However, this idea was based on a very big assumption, that the pollen shell wall even needed to be removed in the first place. Research suggests that once the whole pollen enters the gastrointestinal tract, it swells up due to water absorption and enzymatic activation, naturally bursting the cell walls open. This process allows for the normal absorption of proteins, vitamins, and minerals, rendering the removal of the outer shell by fermentation or enzymes potentially unnecessary. Another suggested benefit of bee bread is that fermentation enhances the nutritional content of bee pollen, introducing new and improved beneficial compounds. While this claim could hold some truth, most studies indicate minimal overall differences. The nutritional composition of bee bread or bee pollen is likely more influenced by the source and geographic location of their harvest. Now, although bee bread lacks human research, bee pollen has been studied a bit in humans, and because they are functionally similar, their benefits may be somewhat comparable. But what exactly has research found about the benefits of bee pollen? Well, it's not good at all, especially when it comes to Bee Vitality's claims. Some research even suggests that bee pollen and bee bread aren't helpful at all. Firstly, there's absolutely no evidence that bee bread or bee pollen can enhance breast growth. However, Bee Vitality suggests that it's the nutrients in bee bread that could support this. But just because it has nutrients essential for breast growth doesn't mean it's specifically helpful for breast growth. To put it into perspective, I could claim that chicken wings support breast growth because they contain protein, which is essential for breast tissue growth. When it comes to fertility, there have been some small animal studies examining the potential uses of bee products, particularly in addressing male reproductive issues. However, none of these studies have involved humans. For instance, one animal study that explored the effects of bee bread on testicular oxidative stress found some benefits. So I guess it might be of some help if you were an obese male rat with testicular issues? Regarding cognitive performance and endurance, studies in athletes have shown that oral bee pollen supplements fail to enhance physiological or physical measures of athletic performance. When it comes to estrogen production and female hormones, research indicates that in individuals undergoing anti-hormonal treatment, bee pollen offers no significant advantage over regular honey in alleviating hot flashes or menopause-like symptoms. In another small trial addressing premenstrual syndrome or PMS, women administered a purified bee pollen extract experienced no significant improvement in overall PMS symptoms compared to placebo. As for immunity, there's no human research on bee pollen. Studies have only examined its effects on various animals, including birds. Overall, it appears that bee pollen and likely bee bread don't really have any actual health benefits in humans, and Bee Vitality's claims lack any supporting evidence, with some research suggesting that they may not be beneficial at all. That being said, bee bread and bee pollen may have nutritional benefits as what some people may call superfoods. But it's important to understand that nutritional benefits are different from specific health benefits. Nutritional benefits refer to the valuable nutrients these products offer, which contribute to overall well-being, whereas specific health benefits are targeted at treating particular health conditions. Although we've established that there are no specific health benefits associated with bee bread and bee pollen, they remain among some of the most nutrient-rich bee-based products, packed with high levels of proteins, vitamins, and minerals. Can we attribute some of these nutritional benefits to bee vitality? Sure. Would these benefits likely contribute to overall well-being? Not quite. The main problem of using superfoods like bee pollen and bee bread as supplements lies in the fact that they're intended for consumption in large quantities to yield significant nutritional benefits, perhaps a few teaspoons per day, equivalent to around 10 or 20 grams. For example, blueberries are known for their nutritional benefits, offering fiber, anti-inflammatory compounds like anthocyanins and polyphenols, as well as vitamins and minerals. Yet consuming just one blueberry daily would not substantially reap these nutritional rewards. Similarly, having a pinch of oatmeal flakes per day wouldn't provide significant nutritional benefits either. To truly harness the nutritional benefits of these superfoods, one would need to consume a substantial portion, like a handful of blueberries or a cup of oatmeal regularly. The same principle applies here. Consuming a small amount of bee bread from Bee Vitality, 700 milligrams per day, won't offer much in terms of nutrition, despite its potential nutrients. There's just too little to be useful. So how do the prices of bee bread and bee pollen stack up against other nutrient-rich superfoods that can offer similar nutritional benefits? Flaxseed probably provides the best bang for your buck, containing many of the fatty acids, proteins, vitamins, and minerals found in bee pollen and bee bread. In bulk, 10 pounds of flaxseed is around $30. Chia seeds are another nutritious option, costing around $50 for the same quantity. Bee pollen makes a considerable leap in cost, exceeding $100 for 10 pounds, although algae like spirulina and chlorella are even more expensive at around $200 for 10 pounds. Meanwhile, bee bread tops the charts at a staggering $1,000 for the same quantity. And I haven't even gone into the taste. While most people would have no issue with eating flax seeds or chia seeds every day, if you've ever tasted straight bee bread, you'll know it has this sour, chewy flavor, and not in a good way, which might be why it's typically sold as a supplement to be swallowed rather than tasted. But if you want nutritional alternatives that most closely resemble bee bread, your best bet is to consider other bee products. Let's start with honey, the familiar sweet, syrupy substance crafted by bees from flower nectar. Honey consists mainly of sugars like glucose and fructose, alongside vitamins, minerals, enzymes, and antioxidants. Renowned for its antimicrobial and wound-healing properties, honey is commonly applied topically for burns, ulcers, cold sores, and wounds. Additionally, it's often used as a natural cough remedy, particularly in children over 2 years old. Propolis is the resinous substance bees use to build and seal their hives. It is abundant in polyphenols, flavonoids, phenolic acids, terpenes, and other compounds. With believed antimicrobial, antioxidant, and anti-inflammatory compounds, propolis is commonly used topically for conditions like cold sores. Moreover, it shows some evidence in improving glycemic control in individuals with type 2 diabetes. Royal jelly is the nutrient-rich secretion crafted by worker bees to nourish larvae and the queen bee. It contains proteins, fatty acids, sugars, vitamins, minerals, and various bioactive compounds. Beyond its nutritional benefits, royal jelly is believed to exert weak hormonal effects on humans. Clinical studies suggest that oral consumption of royal jelly can modestly alleviate menopausal symptoms. Bee venom, the potent substance injected by bees through stings, comprises peptides, enzymes, and proteins with potential anti-inflammatory and analgesic properties. Bee sting therapy is sometimes utilized to manage pain conditions, although the evidence is relatively weak. It is also used for bee sting desensitization therapy for people with severe allergies to bee stings. In comparison, bee pollen and bee bread present much weaker evidence for specific human benefits, with limited human studies conducted on these foods to date. While bee bread and bee pollen offer some decent nutritional benefits, there's nothing in them you can't get in other nutritious fruits, veggies, nuts, and seeds, and relying heavily on bee bread or bee pollen for nutrition would be a pretty expensive way to go about it. Hi, I'm Dr. Brian Young. What do you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the channel and leave me a like. Hit the notification bell if you want to stay up to date, and share this video with someone you know who used the info.